All right, everyone, I'm going to do something I normally don't do today, and I am going to react to a sports podcast. Um, Sorry about that, forgot to turn my fan off. But I am about to react to a sports podcast, specifically the State of the Saints podcast run by one Mr. TJay Jones. Now, I don't normally talk sports, but I want to do something a little different tonight. Now, I am a big fan. Actually, before I get into that, what I'm going to say is that I am actually going to oppose some of the things TJ has been saying about the Saints lately. I'm going to oppose a lot of those things. But before I get into that, I want to say that TJay Jones and the State of the Saints podcast is by far my favorite podcast of any sports podcast in this whole country. TJay Jones is a good man. He is somebody I consider to be a friend. And he really knows his football. And the good thing about TJ is that when you go to his channel and you watch his videos at the State of the Saints podcast on YouTube, you're not going to get no fakeness. TJ isn't going to pretend to be mad about something just to get likes and views. TJ isn't going to put on some sort of act and try to come up with some BS hot takes just to get views and bring in dollars. TJ is going to give you the real him every single time. And when you top that off with the fact that the man really does know his football, even if you're not a Saints fan necessarily, there's no better podcast out there to watch. There really isn't. Now, TJ, you've been messing up lately, man. TJ, you've been saying that Dennis Allen needs to go. We have to fire Dennis Allen. The Saints suck, so on and so forth. And I 100% disagree with you. And I think you're letting your emotions do the talking for you, which you don't normally do. Thank God. But I think you're letting your emotions do your talking for you because of the position the Saints are in. Saints are 2-5 right now. We just came out of a game where we threw 2 pick sixes in a row, and we lost another game that we really should have won. But this is Dennis Allen's first year as head coach. I'm old enough to remember when a coach got 5 years to prove himself. Now a coach gets 5 minutes. We cannot judge Dennis Allen's head coaching ability on 7 games. We have to at least look at an entire season worth of work, if not 2 seasons. Now, another point TJ brought up to bolster his point that Dennis Allen should be fired is that he doesn't think the injuries to our wide receiving core are an excuse for Dennis Allen losing these games. But I do. I think they're very legit. Because almost all our starting receivers have been out for the last few weeks. And TJ makes the argument that, well, the receivers, these second-string receivers, have been doing a good job the last few weeks, and that's true. But here's the thing. These second-string receivers that are second-stringers this year were first-stringers last year. The team of Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, and I forget who the other one is off the top of my head. Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, and maybe Kevin White, I think. Dennis Allen has had a couple of pretty good games on the offensive side of the ball with that tandem. Sean Payton last year, the greatest coach of all time, especially the greatest offensive coach of all time, didn't have a single good game with that same tandem of receivers that I can remember. So you could actually make the argument that Dennis Allen is doing a better job with the same receivers than Sean Payton was. So, I mean, there you go. Now, for me, I'm not as shocked about where the Saints are as everybody else is, because I've said from the beginning that they were going to struggle in the first half of the season. Didn't know they were going to go 2-5. I pictured them being more of a 4-4, but I knew it would be towards the second half of the season before they started getting things right. And people kind of jumped down my throat. They were like, "No, we got Chris Olave. We're getting Jarvis Landry." It doesn't matter. These people have never played together before. You got a new head coach coming in. And granted, he's the same coach that was the DC anyway. But still, a lot of things are getting moved around. And it takes time to build chemistry. We seem to have forgotten, because of how poorly the Saints season has gone, how valuable Dennis Allen is. He's been a big part of our success in the last 6 or 7 years. Huge part. He's got our defense working, and even when he didn't have necessarily the most talented players, he still gave us a respectable defense on the field. So then the question comes up, well, why does the defense suddenly suck, right? Well, I don't think that Dennis Allen suddenly became a bad defensive coach overnight. I don't think that at all. Here's my theory on the decisions Dennis Allen is making behind the scenes and why I think the Saints are where they are right now. Okay, so DA has proven himself to be a great defensive coach. He's been there for us for the last 6 or 7 years or whatever it's been. He's awesome in that regard. What I think is happening, the reason our defense suddenly sucks and the reason the Saints are losing so many games because of it, what I think is happening is that Dennis Allen is trying to oversee the offense and the defense at the same time as head coach. So I think he's basically, not only is he watching the defense, but he's breathing down Pete Carmichael's neck a little bit too much and trying to control what Pete Carmichael does a little too much, which I think is the reason for some of the conservative play that we've been playing on the offensive side of the ball. I really think that that's what's going on. I think Dennis has got it in his head, okay, now I'm the head coach. I have to oversee both sides of the ball as much as possible. And it's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Delegate to others what you don't do well and focus on what you do well. Now, you still have to oversee the offense to some extent because you are the head coach. But you're not an offensive coach, so being hands-on with Pete Carmichael as if you were an offense coach is the wrong way to go. So I think that's the mistake Dennis Allen is making. Nobody's saying that. Nobody said that. That's just the conclusion that I've come to. I think Dennis Allen has split his focus between the defense and the offense. And I think he needs to go back to mainly focusing on the defense because that's where his strengths are. And let Pete Carmichael and the other offensive coordinators do their job on that side of the football. Okay? So that's what I think's going on. I think that Dennis Allen has his hands too deep in the offensive side of the pie, if you will. I'm not saying that right, but you know what I mean? So that's what I think is going on. Now, here's something else I think is going on. I think this is partially Sean Payton's fault. Sean Payton is the greatest coach of all time. But he's also very much a micromanager, detail guy. Likes to micromanage everything. Could it be possible that our coaches got so used to being micromanaged by Sean Payton that they don't really know how to be on their own? So now that Sean Payton suddenly left, they're just left with like, whoa, what do we do now? You know what I'm saying? That could be it too. But I think the main thing is I think Dennis Allen is trying too hard to coach the offense as well as the defense. And he should stick to coaching the defensive side of the ball. If you notice what Bill Belichick does, Bill Belichick doesn't really do a whole lot of coaching on the offensive side of the ball. he really doesn't even step into the offensive coaches' realm too much. You know, he lets them do their thing and he focuses on his specialty, which is defense. And he freely admits that. Now, I'm not arguing that Dennis Allen is a good coach. I'm not even arguing that we should keep him for the long term. What I am arguing is that I don't know. And neither do you, and neither does anybody else. We have 7 games, and no, his coaching tandem with the Raiders does not count. Bill Belichick had one of the worst coaching records of all time for his first few seasons as a head coach before he came to the Patriots. He was with the Browns for 3 years, 4 years, and I think he was like 3-13 every year. I don't have the exact stats in front of me. And before that, I believe he coached, who was it? Maybe the Bills for a couple years. But he came into New England with a terrible coaching record. Okay? But he found a way to get it done, and that's another reason when he came to New England. And I think part of the reason that he was able to get things done in New England the way he has over the last 20 years is because the owners of the New England Patriots stuck with him. So he had guaranteed longevity, so he didn't have to worry about losing his job after any given season. He could just focus on slowly building his team. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, when you look at Dennis Allen and you look at his coaching record, remember that the first 3 or 4 or 5 years of Bill Belichick's coaching record were as bad as Dennis Allen, if not worse. Now, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong, TJ? Even if I'm wrong, even if Dennis Allen is the worst decision we ever made as head coach, and he should not be a coach, and you're right, and we need to fire him, and so on and so forth. Even if that's the case, even if DA just isn't cut out to be a head coach, we still shouldn't fire him. We should demote him back to defensive coordinator. The man is still a hell of a defensive coordinator. So firing him is going to do us no good whatsoever. Then we got to go find a new DC. Now, if we get rid of him as head coach, we need to demote him as head coach and then make a play for a new head coach, which reminds me, and this is how I'm going to end this particular video. I'm pretty sure that the Saints, no matter what DA does for the rest of the season, like even if Dennis Allen wins every game and we go 11-6, I think the Saints are planning on getting rid of him as head coach anyway, and I think they are bringing Sean Payton back. I think the Saints are going to do everything they can to bring Sean Payton back into the mix and make him head coach again. I think they're going to offer him a ton of money. I think they're going to do what they got to do to get Sean Payton back in. Mickey Loomis is going to work his magic. Sean Payton's going to come back. And if Sean Payton's not back next year, it won't be for lack of trying, because I really believe that the Saints are doing everything they can to lure Sean Payton back. So no matter, my whole video and this whole argument about Dennis Allen might be pointless, because I really think that the Saints are planning to bring Sean Payton back. I think they're going to do everything they can to do that. So I think there's a good 70, if not 80% chance that Sean Payton is coaching the Saints in 2023. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Now, for those of you who follow my channel, if you like sports, go over to the State of the Saints podcast. I'm going to link it down below. Go over to the State of the Saints podcast on YouTube and subscribe to TJ's channel over there. Because even if you're not a Saints fan, TJ's just great. Let's just put it that way. You will enjoy his podcast. You know, he talks about a lot of real life stuff too over there. It's way different than any other sports show that you've ever heard of. So go give TJ a follow. But these are the points I'm making, okay? So I think not just Dennis Allen, but every head coach needs more than a few games to prove himself. We're too impatient now because we're in the social media smartphone generation. We got to stop that. We got to give a coach at least a season to show what he can really do. And we're not doing that for Dennis Allen. And that's disrespectful to Dennis Allen because, again, the man has been a huge part of our success over the last 6 or 7 years. Huge. As great as Sean Payton is, we would not have had the run we've had in the last 6 or 7 years without Dennis Allen. Just wouldn't have happened. He took our defense from basically absolute worst to top 5 best. So that's what it is. But hey, go give TJay a follow. And TJay, if you want to react to this video, you can. I'm going to also link my Cash App down below. Please show your love. I'll talk to you guys soon.